In our biolab, we conducted an experiment and we observed how fava bean plants grew throughout the span of a few weeks and what happens when ladybugs and aphids are introduced into the mini ecosystem. Aphids are the primary consumers of this environment, feeding on the fava bean plants. The ladybugs are secondary consumers, feeding on the aphids. As the aphid population increased in their ecosystem, the ladybugs population will also increase until there were enough ladybugs to consume the majority of the aphids. This will lead to a decline in the aphid population and eventually a decline to the ladybugs as well.
To test our hypothesis, we planted 2 seeds into each of our 4 small pots and observed the plant growth. Once a week, we took the measurements of their heights and recorded them in a table. After a few weeks, we extracted 1 plant from each pot and left 1 pot alone to become our control. The 3 plants that were taken out were weighed and measured by its body, and roots then wrapped in aluminum foil to be dried out. Plants that were left in the pots continued to grow for another week until we added 50 aphids and 3 ladybugs to each pot but the control. A clear bottle was placed over each plant and secured with mesh and rubber bands to prevent the insects from escaping. At the end of the experiment, we counted the number of ladybugs and aphids that were still alive and recorded those numbers in our table.
We predicted that the ladybugs were going to eat most of the aphids until there were not enough to satisfy the ladybugs population. This will lead to a decline in the number of ladybugs and thus a rise in the number of aphids. We found that as time passed, the aphid population began to diminish while the ladybugs population remained constant. By the end of the experiment, all the ladybugs had survived and only a small fraction of aphid population was left.
The decrease in the aphid population was because the ladybugs were feeding on them. A few aphids could have also escaped, which could explain the low aphid numbers. An interesting observation was that some plants had died by the end of the experiment, while others had survived. This could be because the aphids feed on the plant juice, which can be harmful enough to kill the plants. We found that our experiment did indeed support our hypothesis. The data that we gathered shows that as the aphid population decreased, the ladybug population stayed the same. The constant number of ladybugs during the entire experiment was due to the length of time that ladybugs need to reproduce. The entire process can take up to a few weeks, which they do not have in their new ecosystem. Otherwise, we would have observed an increase in the ladybug population.